Today we get to talk about being an HSS. Now I've already talked about being an HSP, a highly sensitive person. So I definitely suggest you go back to that video and check it out. But there's another trait that you can be, and it's called an HSS, and that is a high sensation seeker. And it's really important to understand this about yourself so that you can manage your own expectations and also help your partner manage their expectations if you're in relationship. And also they can understand you better. And that was super important with the highly sensitive person because basically our senses are highly sensitive. The 5 senses. The reason why I share this information is because prior to knowing those things about myself, prior to knowing that I'm not only an HSP, but I'm also an HSS, not knowing that, I felt a little lost, like I didn't have a rudder. And then I think I also placed too many expectations on my partner. Now that I do know that I'm those things, I know how to manage myself better, and I don't expect my partner to do it for me, but I also can help them understand me better and so that we can have a better relationship together. So let's dig into this HSS, a high sensation seeker. It's easy to assume that high sensation means I want to jump out of an airplane and parachute, or I want to rock climb, or any extreme sports. And it certainly would encompass that for some people. But my high sensation seeking looks differently than that. So although I can be easily overstimulated, I can also be easily understimulated. But when you're an HSS, you have to have your senses stimulated. And if you don't feel well. Kind of like how I described before with the HSP. How do you describe this not feeling well? It's an anxiousness, it's a depression, it's a heaviness. You just don't feel well, and it's hard to function when you don't feel well. And so what's really important is figuring out for you how to stay on that path. I don't do extreme sports, but I do need to stimulate my senses in order to feel well. So for me, being a highly sensitive person and a high sensation seeker, my narrow road of feel good, if I veer from it over here, I'm overstimulated by the world, by all this stuff. It's too much. But over here is understimulation, and it feels just as bad as overstimulation. And I think in general, every HSP has to balance out their overstimulation and understimulation. But for me, as a high sensation seeker, if I'm understimulated, I feel really bad. If I don't have my version of adventure, joy, creative expression, passion in my life, I don't want to live. That's how bad it feels for me. High sensation seekers need to feel that. It's easy to point out the person who loves extreme sports. They need that adrenaline rush. They need that to stimulate their innermost being. It makes them feel alive. High sensation seeking for me looks like pursuing new things, new skills, learning something new. My curiosity cannot be satiated. I am so curious about anything and everything, and if I could, I would try anything and everything, except parachuting out of an airplane. I'm not an extreme sports kind of girl. I don't need that adrenaline rush. My rush comes from learning ballroom dancing, learning how to play the flute, expressing myself creatively through painting, through writing poetry, through writing in general, through reading a new book that's exciting, through creating an online school. If there's a class, I want to go to it. I want to take it. I want to learn it. Going to class, going to school is a thrill for me. It excites me. Again, I have to remember that path, because if I get too much going on, then I can move into the overstimulation realm. It was so important I learned this about myself so that I didn't lay this pressure and this burden upon my partners. My life is so intentional how I live my day. I start off in the morning typically coming down here to be amongst this beauty, and that's very refreshing to my soul. If I stay indoors, that's not stimulating enough to me. I need to feel the sun. I need to see the trees and those flowers, and they make me feel alive. I need to see people and animals. But if you throw me in a loud restaurant, you're indoors, it's closed in, there's loud people. I have to speak loud to have a conversation with someone. So an HSP also likes depth. It's very hard to do that in a restaurant, and it's super exhausting to me. So those would be overstimulating things. So Elaine Ahrens, I mentioned her before. She is the author, the psychologist of The Highly Sensitive Person, and I highly recommend checking her out because she's also the one who introduced the term HSS to me, the high sensation seeker. And I read the description, I went, that's me, I'm screwed. I'm both an HSP and an HSS. What the heck do you do with that? So at first realization, it's kind of depressing because you realize the intentional life you must live. I can't just coast. I just can't get up and see what happens. I have to manage my senses, my stimulation, my energy. If I don't, if I get too little sensation, stimulation, and energy, it feels awful. If I get too much, it feels awful. And it makes sense why I lived most of my life super depressed, lonely, and suicidal. I didn't know this about me, so I couldn't embrace it and create a life to support it. So now you would look at me and think I'm a normal person, although you'd say, wow, she's involved in a lot of things. Because one day I'm taking a course in college, the next day I'm learning how to play the flute, the next day I'm painting, the next day I'm writing a book. That is my idea of stimulation and sensation that I love and can handle. But even that I have to balance. So to the average person, it probably seems like too much, relax. Yes, I can relax, and I make intentional efforts to relax. But those activities typically fuel me. They stimulate me, and I know how now to do them to a level where they feel good and I'm not overstimulated or understimulated. I really vacillate back and forth all day between stimulation, sensory input, sensory output, and taking a break to recoup. Oddly enough, I can recoup just by just sitting down and relaxing or playing with my cats or exercise, walking. Those activities are incredible for me to recoup from overstimulation or understimulation. So my daily life has to be filled with that. I can't go a week and not exercise. I really can't go a day without it. So each day I wake up and I see my day and I'm able to sort of innately calculate now how to integrate stimulation, downtime. So if you're an HSP and or an HSS, you have to really look at your life and think about the things that fuel you, inspire you, and make you feel good, and think about the things that don't. Sometimes we do have to do things we don't like to do, but you're gonna have to manage how much time you spend in each of those so that you feel good and start creating that life that supports your HSP-ness and your HSS-ness. Now here's something interesting that I found out about HSSs, high sensation seekers. They tend to remain single. If they don't know that about themselves, they may try relationship, but they possibly could get bored easily. So HSS people get bored easily. They need new stimuli. And what I realized is I do love the consistency, the balance, the groundedness of a committed relationship. And so I have other things in my life. And thank goodness I have a partner who loves adventure. High on our list is travel, getting away on the weekend. That's stimulating for me, having something new to look at, having a new hike to do, a new restaurant to try. We love that. And also, I also don't place the burden of my high sensation seeking on him. I have a full life myself. I involve myself in things that stimulate me, whether that's books or art, painting, writing. All of that I can do in my own time so that I fuel that part of me that needs to feel alive. I can't place that burden on him. Sure, there's tons of awesome stuff we can do together and discover together. But the HSS that doesn't know that about themselves, or they've decided, yeah, I'm not going to do relationship. I like the thrill of new relationships all the time. You know, I guess if that works for you, it didn't work for me. I didn't like how it felt. And it doesn't feel fair to the other person. Unless you know that about yourself, and unless you know you don't want to be in one relationship, you want to keep dating, just be honest. Just be honest and let people know, hey, I'm not in this for the long haul. I'm just, I'm just out to have fun right now. And you might be one of those people who's out to have fun for the rest of your life. Now, I've decided that I'm going to have fun within the context of relationship. It can be done. I'm guessing too that a lot of artists, activists, writers, poets probably are both HSPs and HSSs. They tend to live, the cliche, tormented lives, but you don't have to live that tormented life. I did live a tormented life. I didn't understand my HSP-ness and my HSS-ness. And it's quite contrary to the rest of society, how the rest of society lives. They can just go on about their day and not be worried about the stimuli, the noises, the sights and sounds all around them. I have to. It affects me greatly. Remember that dial I talked about? If the baseline is 0, that's where most people live life. My dial is turned up to 10. Life is at a 10. I'm acutely aware of everything on a higher level. So the same goes for my sensation seeking. I need to feel that sensation well up inside me at a 10, not a 0. High sensation seekers might try lots of different groups and clubs for short periods of time, because after a while they might get bored if the group doesn't keep things excited and stimulating and try different things. They're just going to move on. And if you know that about yourself, wonderful. Don't make it wrong. Accept it and be prepared for the consequences of it. Because what I found was happening for me is I was beginning to feel really alone. So to reiterate, it's not a choice. It's not a trait we can just turn off. I can't turn off my highly sensitive personness. I can't turn that dial off. It's who I am. The same goes for my high sensation seeking. I can't just turn that off. It's there. So we either feed it and embrace it and create the balance that we need and really make those efforts to support ourselves so we can thrive and honor ourselves and the people around us, the people in our relationship. Or, you don't support yourself, you feel bad more often, and you probably let down those around you, and you might be a burden to those around you because you're expecting too much from them. You're in charge of you, manage you, figure out you, and then the rest will fall into place. There might be some teaching you have to do to those around you, because we do teach others how to treat us. And so there might be a little bit of that. But if you start living you and caring for you, it's just going to transcend and people aren't going to question it. So let's sum this up. Be you, be proud of you, embrace unique you, support your HSP-ness and or your HSS-ness. And if you need help navigating that, I'm here. Ask me any question you would like. And of course, all of my courses at Heartbreak University really help tap into you and your uniqueness and to be you fully and completely, because no one can be you. Only you can be you. And we have to stop expecting everyone around us to do that for us or make us feel better. We are in charge of ourselves. You create your life and relationships. All right.